I just realized I was muted because I was doing some stuff in the background. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 16. Oh my gosh, episode 16 of season 3 of Black Writers Read. My name is Nicole Young Martin, and I'm the founder, producer, and host for the series. Thank you for joining us for this Mother's Day weekend for Black Writers Read. To all the femme identified caregivers, and especially to those who are missing their mother or their child who walks this journey in another realm, I'm sending you the deepest love and admiration and will always have a special place reserved for you in my heart. Please take care of your heart this weekend and may you be surrounded by nothing but beautifully fulfilling experiences. So let's go ahead and get today's conversation started. Black Writers Read showcases, celebrates, and honors the words, work, and traditions of Black writers from across the country, across genres, across experiences, and across the African diaspora. Black Writers Read is a behind the scenes conversation into the craft and what it means to create as a Black author in today's society. Since starting the series during the summer of 2020, we've hosted over 50 authors representing various genres, including children's books, young adult fiction, poetry, urban creative nonfiction, memoir, history, horror, essays, food, and culture from around the globe, including Western Massachusetts, Maryland, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Florida, upstate New York, New York's Hudson Valley, Philadelphia, Vermont, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Chicago, Virginia, Indiana, Portugal, Costa Rica, and St. Martin. Today, I am very happy to add Greater Boston back onto the list. We haven't had anyone on from Greater Boston in some time. Today, we welcome poet and nonfiction writer Shirley A. Jones-Luke. Shirley A. Jones-Luke is a poet and writer based in Boston, Massachusetts. Ms. Luke has an MFA in creative writing from Emerson College. Her poems focus on culture, family, and society. Ms. Luke is working on her first collection entitled Traumaland, a manuscript in progress. Today, Shirley will share excerpts from Traumaland, and we will then engage in a discussion about both this poetry collection and the body of her work. When preparing for Black Writers Read, we ask guests, why do they write? Here's what Shirley had to share. I write to survive. Writing keeps me alive. I write because I owe my deceased mother a book. I write for the future. My words and work will outlive me. Writing is immortality. I write to share and to inform. I write because there are those who wish to erase our stories from history. I write because our stories matter. At this time, there are those who worship guns over people. There are those who want to ban our books. I write to stop the erasure of my people's history in this country. Poetry is a powerful medium. I use poetry to express my feelings and thoughts. Poetry is a flexible form. I can do so much with my words through poetry. Folks may remember Shirley from our 2021 Black History Month live stream event. I am beyond excited to welcome her back to Black Writers Read to spotlight, highlight, and offer her flowers specifically for her work and unique literary voice. For those who are new to Black Writers Read, here's the format of the show. Shirley will come on and read from her work, then we'll chat about her book and the body of her work. If time remains at the end of the conversation, we'll open it up to questions and answers for those who are joining us today. We have viewers joining us from both Facebook and YouTube. If you have a question, please feel free to include it in the comments section on the platform where you're joining us from today. I will compile the questions and either pose them to our guests following our conversation or insert them during an appropriate time within our chat. I'd now like to bring Shirley back onto the virtual stage. Hello! Yes!
Hello.
Welcome back to Black Writers Read. Black Writers Read.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Yeah, I have so been looking forward to having you on, and I'm so glad that it actually worked out, that we're able to bring you on for Mother's Day weekend. Because I remember the conversation you and I had after the Black History Month live stream, and you were talking about your work and like how all of these identities that you hold intersect, and being a mother and educator is very important. So I was just like, Mother's Day weekend is so perfect for you to be here.
Yes, it's definitely the perfect time to share out. And again, shout out to all the women and women affirming and women identifying. I want to make sure I say the right words. It's 2023. Got to say the right language. All those who care for children, care for elders, care in the classroom, I wish you all a happy Mother's Day. We mothers hold up the world, and the world would fall without us.
The world would collapse. The world would not exist.
The world will fall without us. So people don't want to acknowledge that. So all the single moms, married moms, girlfriend moms, auntie moms, foster moms, adopted moms, moms, whoever you are, grandmoms.
Yes.
I tip my scarf, my head wrap.
Yeah.
My head wrap to you, to all of us that take care of little ones, not so little ones who think they're grown, and the ones who are grown. To all of us, happy Mother's Day.
Yes, and which I was wondering, because for folks who don't know, you also are a fashionista, because I follow you on your fashionista account. I was like, because I made sure I was like, what's Shirley gonna wear today? I need to make sure that I look appropriate.
I was trying to figure out what I was going to wear too. It's hot here in Boston. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And my house has a tendency, when it's hot outside, it's hot in the house. When it's cold outside, it's cold in the house. So I was like, well, I'm going to be online here. People want me watching. Let me make sure I, put on a little something, but at the same time, make sure I'm not sweating myself away.
Sweat away, go sweat away.
Oh, I can't sweat away. Can't sweat away.
Yes. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and I will be back momentarily. So have fun.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right. Give a hand out to Nicole and for everything she does for Black Writers Read. This is a very important platform. So spread the word to all those who might be missing it. Get them to come on. And if they can't come on, make sure they find the replay or online, YouTube, or wherever it can be found, because Black Writers Read is important because, as I said, as Nicole said in my bio, they trying to erase us, y'all. They trying to act like we never even came to these shores. They act like they didn't bring us here. Okay. Like, we guessed that, overstayed our welcome. We would never guess. So I will be reading a few pieces from the manuscript I'm currently working on. I'm with a organization called Community Literature Initiative. We just finished our class not too long ago. Shout out to all those people in CLI. We had Hiram on, so it was good to see him and hear him. So what I'm doing with that is it's sort of like a class where we meet every week to workshop our poems and talk about poetry and get some lessons in poetry. And it's been a wonderful experience. My time there is wrapping up, and I met some wonderful people through this program that I hope to continue to see out there in the world through their books, through their poetry talks, and any other mediums that they happen to be on. So I will be reading, as I said, a few of my poems from the manuscript I'm working on through CLI. It's entitled Traumaland. And just to give a quick backdrop on that, the last, I would say, 8 years of my life basically encapsulates Traumaland. It represents Traumaland. I am a breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in 2015. And then later on in that same year, my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. We were both going through various stages of treatment. I had chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation. My mother went through chemo. Then I was a caretaker to her as she regained her strength. She went into remission, and she was on the track to full recovery. And unfortunately, the cancer had other ideas, and I lost my mother in June of 2017. It'll be the 6-year anniversary coming up this June. So Mother's Day also holds a special place because I am without my mother. And if you are without your mother, then you understand how hard that has been. Also, as Nicole mentioned, I'm an educator. I teach for the Boston Public Schools, But that might be coming to an end because Boston Public Schools has a habit of evaluating out of the system teachers they don't like. And it's my turn. And I've been trying to hang on for the last 3-4 years, but they got me. And I'm probably going to be seeing my last few weeks or months or maybe the last year, I don't know, depending on how long this process goes, in the classroom. And while I'm grieving the end of being a classroom teacher, that does not mean I am no longer a teacher. I have skills, I have knowledge, and I have the drive and ambition to take what I've learned from being a classroom teacher and pivoting into something bigger and better. I'm also a mom, and my son just turned 20, so I'm like, 20 years. I was like, ooh, thank goodness I inherited my mom. Like, shoot, black don't crack. But yes, he is 20 years old. So it's a lot of things have gone through in the last 8 years. So Traumaland developed from all of that. So here are my poems. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's see. Bring that up. Hopefully you can still see me because I had to click on something else. I'm sure Nicole will let me know if I've disappeared from the screen. All right, so I'm putting the final touches on my manuscript, and I already have a cover design, and now I'm working with an interior designer, book designer, on the next stage of the manuscript. So I think it's fitting, since we're talking about cultural erasure, that I read the poem. Cultural erasure. African American studies have no place in Florida, per Governor Ron DeSantis. It would seem that the dictator ruling the Sunshine State has forgotten its past. Florida, like many southern states, was a slave-holding state, forcing millions of Africans into servitude. This state holds many memories of the horrors of slavery within its borders, like feeding Black babies to alligators and placing Black people in cages. Not to mention the segregation of Black and white children in education. And that history DeSantis no longer wants in Florida schools. I find it insane, but racism causes insanity. DeSantis is infected with intolerance and hatred. Racism is such a virulent disease. Florida is lost in the virus. Who knows when it will be cured? DeSantis' exit can begin the process. All right, so that's cultural erasure. And if you're from Florida, I feel for you. But that man is not doing that state right. All right, another poem from Traumaland, Like Manna from Heaven. Dedicated to my mother, Carrie Jones. Like manna from heaven. The children's hungry eyes always haunted my mother. Eyes that searched hers for a knowing nod and the food she served during the lunch period. She urged them not to push each other, their hard plastic trays eager for the Dickinson-like fare that awaited them. My mother was their savior, often doling out extra portions whenever she could. Fruit, salad, rolls, allowing children that needed to pay a portion of their lunch to bring her the money the next day. Sometimes the money came, sometimes it didn't. She would make up the difference out of her own pocket, telling the children that it was okay. Relief and gratitude washing over their faces like the Red Sea over the Pharaoh's troops, saving the fleeing Israelites from a life of servitude and squalor. My mother was their Moses, not asking for anything in return but a smile or a thank you. Instead, she received plenty of hugs, soft tears, and the promise of a better tomorrow. All right, so that's Like Manna from Heaven. Next up in the Traumaland series, I failed to see the signs in the palm of my hand. I failed to see the signs in the palm of my hand, lined with cuts and scars, wrinkled from overuse, premature aging down the middle of my hand, my longevity inherited from my mother's mother's mother, women who worked with their hands under a harsh sun, worked with hard soil, took care of someone else's privileged and free children, denied basic human rights, 2 strikes against them, black and female, a curse. Not for me, not now, not in this time. But my hands are tired. Youth washed away by chalk and markers, endless lines of writing, reams of paper, blackboards, whiteboards, the smell of cleaning fluid. My head spins. My hands cramp. I cannot write. I cannot type. I cannot forget that I'm no stranger to poverty. My mother wanted me to do better than her. Her hands were gnarled and twisted, bent from carrying heavy loads, then carrying cancer, brittle nails, deep wrinkles, thin knuckles. My mother's hands knew only of pain. My hands now know only of loss. All right. And my final piece for reading. Here we go. End on, where is this? Here we go. All right. Simple pleasures elude me like fireflies. Simple pleasures elude me like fireflies. Joy flits away in the moonlight. Solitude is the crystal tears of stars dropping in clouds that shift restlessly above a dark world. I feel the wind numbing my spirit, freezing my being, hardening the center of me, this core of emotions. I reach up. Moonlight slips between my fingers. The stars are beyond my grasp, like fireflies, glow about me in constant motion. Thank you.
Thank you. This is what an MFA does. Like just the ways in which you illustrate like imagery in your text. Like it's just I can see pictures. I can see exactly where you're taking the reader. And I'm like, MFA, MFA, MFA. Which I have a question to Shirley
Yes.
about graduate professional programs later on. But so I did not realize, I have to mention this before we start the questions, but since my mother passed in 2015, I find myself aligning to those who have lost a parent as well. I did not know that about you until today. And so I was like, okay, this is, a strong affinity because I just remember the conversation that we had in 2021 after the live stream. And I was like, I'm really connecting with Shirley. And that, is one reason. So I didn't realize both of our mothers, walk on another plane. So I was like, wow. And then also we have, we're both educators and we both have graduate degrees in the arts and to be not only a person of color, but a Black woman specifically, to have an MFA, like that, there's a lot there. And I can't wait to talk with you about that. So, the first question I have for you is I'd like to start off because you kind of mentioned a little bit about Traumaland. Can you offer more into the origin story of the collection and then why the title Traumaland?
Okay. Well, the title went through many different iterations. When I first started thinking of writing a collection, it was there go my lights. But anyway, gotta pay that bill. Anyway, when I first started writing a collection, it was back in probably around 2016. I was in the midst of my cancer treatments. I was in the midst of taking care of my mother. Sorry, I'm trying to get the light back on.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, readers. Sorry, viewers.
Yes.
We're back.
There we go.
There we go. I was in the midst of my cancer treatment, and my mother was in the midst of hers. Actually, she was going into the remission phase in 2016. And so I was thinking that, I had written a lot of poems up until that point. And because poetry has always been that, as you read in my bio, it saved my life. I was going through all kinds of stuff when I learned I had cancer, when I learned my mother had cancer, going through the treatments, taking care of my mother, losing my mother. I always turned to poetry, whether I was writing it, reading it. It was where I could put my thoughts, because it was hard to articulate. When you lose your mom, it's like you're losing your anchor.
Yep.
Okay. And for the first few years, as I say, it's going into year 6 this June. The first 3 years, I felt adrift. And I was trying to do other things to sort of like not focus on the grief, and that was disastrous. The grief was like, nah, you can't do anything else but focus on me. But I didn't want to focus on the grief, and it was a battle. So the only time I could really focus, is when I wrote poetry or read poetry or went to a poetry reading or attended poetry workshops. That was the only time that grief turned into art, so to speak.
Wow.
And so when I first started working on my manuscript, I wanted to work on something and get it published, because at the time I didn't know, what was, what were going to be the end result, because my mom was in remission in 2016. So things were at the time looking up, so I felt like I need to publish a collection of my poems so that she can hold that in her hands.
Wow.
And so I was sending it out to different contests, because as I've been told, the only way to get noticed and move your poetry career along is by winning contests.
Yep.
But my manuscripts kept getting rejected. And I was like, okay, let me do more workshops. Let me do more revision. Let me read more poems, study form. But again, it was hard to do in the midst of working, caring for my child, caring for my mother, and dealing with everything that was going on with me physically, mentally, psychologically with cancer. So I just kept, working on different titles, doing my own sort of like revision, getting my stuff looked at when I could, and sending stuff out, getting rejected. Sometimes I'd get, feedback saying, okay, this was good. This is what you need to work on. Sometimes I knew how to work on it, and sometimes I didn't. And, eventually it was like, I need more craft. I need more instruction in the art of poetry. Like, I can write anything in nonfiction, but when it came to poetry, I needed to know more of the nuts and bolts of the craft, which is what led me to eventually to CLI. But so Traumaland was probably the 5th or 6th title in that original manuscript. And over the years, I kept adding in new poems, moving poems around. And as I said, sending things off to contests. But I kept getting rejected. And I'm sure, as you know, and as any poets watching this, those contest fees add up.
Yes.
It's like, they want $25, $30, $40 for you just to submit something. So after a while, after so many rejections, I was like, let me focus on craft, because I'm going broke on sending this stuff out and getting rejected. All they give you is like, oh, well, here's a free issue of our magazine.
And then they want you to renew the
right?
subscription
Right?
I'm like, really?
I was like, wait a minute, this cost me $25. I can't get a little bit more than that.
And there have been some for me that have asked me to then donate because many of these journals are with nonprofits. So I was
Right,
like, wait, you
right.
gonna reject me, then send me copies of things that I'm not in, and then you're gonna ask for a donation, and then you're gonna ask me to renew. What?
Don't get me started on sending me stuff and I'm not even in it. Like
Right.
I be getting stuff in the mail from these journals, and I'll be like, "Ooh, am I in this?" Because I send out stuff prolifically. I send out
Mhm.
stuff every month, and so I'm and after a while you forget because you keep it moving, and so you get these magazines and journals, and you're thinking, "Oh, maybe they published my stuff, and I just didn't catch the email." And so you open up the table of contents, and you're looking for your name and your poem, and you don't see nothing. And I'm like, why did they send me this?
Right.
What was this for? No, there's no letter, no note, no card, no sticky note. Just say, here you go. I'm like,
So
dude,
no sticky note.
like, no sticky note, nothing. I mean, if I'm in there, yeah, send me a copy. Shoot, send me a few so I can give them out. But if I'm
Right.
not in there, don't send it. You wasting postage. You wasting postage. I'm sorry. You wasting postage. I ain't got time to look at this. I'm trying to get in your publication. Don't send me your publication. I was like, well, what is that supposed to encourage me or so? I don't know what the mindset is, but I just be
Yeah.
looking through the poems and I just be like, well, where's mine? Oh, it ain't in here. Let me toss that on the pile. And there you go. And I got a pile of journals that don't have my poems in it. And I'm just like, y'all about to go to Goodwill or Savers or something. Maybe somebody else can benefit from this because I can't benefit from it.
Make sure do not turn your apartment into a hoarder situation where you are keeping journals in there and or set a fire with the journals in your apartment.
Well, all I can say at my house is nobody better lit no matches because that's all I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay? I'd have the fire department talking about, okay, we got a 3-alarmer right here. We got a 3-alarmer because I'm a reader. I mean, that's what got me into writing in the first place. My mom knew when I was little, she would always supported my writing and she would help. And we were poor, but my mom, she would help in any way she could. She would take my brother and I to the library, and I love libraries to this day because it's like libraries are like Eden to me. Okay. A paradise full of books that you could just sit there all day and read and you don't have to pay.
Right.
Shoot. I was like, shoot, libraries and bookstores, those are my paradise. Shoot. Anytime someone says, oh, what can I get you for your birthday? What can I get you for Christmas? What can I get you for Mother's Day? I was like, gift cards, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Shoot, I like books.
Yeah.
I like books and I cannot lie.
Yes, I like big books and I cannot lie. Let's do this. Let's twerk.
Ooh. So my goal. So unfortunately, as I said, my mother passed in June of 2017. So I was still in this phase of trying to get somebody to notice my manuscript, and that wasn't happening. So that was my biggest regret, was not having something published that my mom could hold in her hands. She could open up, she could see, and therefore, so my collection, Traumaland, deals with the grief, deals with being Black, being a Black woman, because America is a trauma land for us. So that's essentially where Traumaland came from. It's sort of like, what's been happening in the news last few years with George Floyd and Sandra Bland and Eric Garner. I mean, what just happened with Neely in New York getting choked out to death. I mean,
that's right.
It's like this America is trauma land for us. If you are Black skinned, you are brown skinned, this country is trauma. And so oftentimes we don't even know that we're dealing with trauma, because sometimes trauma doesn't hit you right in the face. It comes in other ways. Okay. Like I watched the video of Jordan Neely getting choked out. That's true.
Wow.
I watched the video of George Floyd with that officer having that knee on his neck, and he's calling out for his mama. Okay, I've watched the video of, there was a young man in Memphis getting beat down by black police officers. Okay, I mean, they were beating him like he had spit on their mamas.
Mm-hmm.
They were beating him like a dog. And he was only a few blocks away from his mama's house, and he was calling for his mama. All right.
Wow.
That's trauma. Okay. As an educator, I go into classrooms. I'm in my classroom, and kids come into my classroom, and it's like they have no understanding of what's going on in the world. Okay. If it's not happening on TikTok, okay, and it's not somebody twerking or doing some crazy stunt or some comedic skit, they don't want to care about it. They don't care about it. And when I ask them about things going on in the world, you know, I get blank stares back at me. You know, you can literally hear the crickets chirping. I mean, it was the realization hit me hard when last week I was asking my 8th grade class, because we're doing current events and we're talking about how to write for an audience. And I was asking them, okay, pretend you're a college professor and you have to give a lecture on African American literature. Who might be your audience? And I asked them to write some sentences about that, you know, talk to each other, share out. And I noticed one of my students, a young lady, sitting there. Everyone around her is either talking or writing or both. But she's sitting there. She looks down at her paper. She looks at my screen. She looks back down at her paper, and then she stares off into space. So I say, hey, so-and-so, do you need help? Do you have a question? You know, what's going on? And she looked me dead in my face, and she said, Miss, what's African American literature?
What?
Girl, I do not lie. That's exactly what she said to me. What is African American literature?
How did he?
Girl, I literally saw the ancestors come up out of me, floating around me. Luckily, I was next to a table. I had to lean on it.
Oh.
And this is a girl who's an Afro-Latina. Okay?
Whoa.
People are from DR. But again, they're caught up on this. This is their life. Okay? And if somebody they're following isn't talking about African American literature, they don't know. And what hurts me is we had just done poetry a few months ago, and I only do Black poets. That's all I do. Okay? And then a few months before that, we had Black History Month. And I was talking about Black poets, Black writers, Black books, African American literature. All right? And it just pained me. It hurt my heart. It almost took my soul. Like I said, the ancestors were floating around me like,
Harriet was like, please do not snatch this girl's wig. Harriet was like, Shirley, I'm gonna need you to breathe.
Right? The ancestors are like, you got to teach them, girl. We shocked too. We
Yes.
shocked too. You shoot, heaven's in the uproar. Heaven is in the uproar. Yeah. I can see all the Black people, especially in literature, up there. Tony, okay, Maya, James, Jane,
all
them.
Gwendolyn,
Lucille, Langston.
Oh,
they were probably all like, huh? What she say?
Yes.
What she say? I know they were shook.
Wow.
Martin, Malcolm, Medgar, all of them were probably like, what? All the Black Panthers up there. What? What she say? She said, what is what? All of them were all shook. I know she caused an uproar up there. I know the other side of the veil was about to shatter.
Oh.
I had to stop myself from not going off because I was like, in my head, the hood part of me was like, what you mean African American literature? You got a Black teacher right in front of you. We did this with poetry. We did this during Black History Month. I talk about Black writers all year. Okay, I'm all like, because you don't pay attention, because you too busy on this. Y'all too busy who fighting at so-and-so bus stop, who fighting at so-and-so train station. Okay? Y'all too busy coming in here smelling like weed. All right? Your brain out. Girl, I had to stop myself from that coming out my mouth because I was upset. I'm like, what you mean? So I calmly, once I stopped leaning on the table and gathered my thoughts, I calmly explained to her what that was and what we had done in the classroom that represented African American literature.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, some recognition came back in her eyes and she started writing. But I was standing there for breathing heavy, like I had just ran a marathon, girl. And I am not a runner. I'm going to tell you right now.
Oh, no.
I am not a runner. So, shoot, I was sweating. I'm sweating now, just telling you about it.
Oh, my God.
I was like, look, where's my water at? Whew. But yeah, so Traumaland is the culmination of all the things that are going on in this country, especially the last 8 years. All the things that have gone on in my family, in my career, things that I've witnessed, on the news and whatnot. So that finally in my mind said, you know what, America is trauma land for Black people. So that's where Traumaland comes from.
I'm going to skip ahead because you answered like 9 of my questions.
You can't tell me I ain't thorough. I be thorough at shoot. Let me answer all the questions at once. I'm thorough.
But not only that, I'm like, this conversation can go into a place that I've wanted to take it for the longest time. So the question I'm going to ask you now, because, and you mentioned this about Traumaland, you have so many intersecting identities. You are an educator, you're a mom, you are a cancer survivor, which I didn't know. You are, someone who is walking this earth motherless. You're also a fashionista. And also now I learned, you're an avid reader and you love libraries and bookstores. So considering all those intersections and all of those identities that are on the margin, because every single one fits under, like Black femme caregiver, I would love for you to talk about your work and then how do all of those identities inform the way that you write and also to the way that you educate.
Well, I always educate. Well, see, first off, as I mentioned earlier, I've been writing since childhood. Like I said, I grew up poor. And my mother was, one of her main phrases in life was do better than me. Okay. My mother didn't have a chance to go on to higher education. She was able to attain her high school diploma, but she wasn't able to go to college. She tried to go when my brother and I were little, but because there were no support systems in place, and my father wasn't one of them, she wasn't able to go, complete a higher ed degree. So she always instilled within my brother and I the importance of education and the importance of not continuing the cycle of poverty. And oftentimes nowadays, a lot of people talk about, especially like a lot of Black folks on Instagram and TikTok talk about generational wealth. Okay. Home ownership, buying stocks and bonds and stuff like that. But we don't talk about the generational wealth of determination, of support, of values. That's what my mother had. She didn't have no money to buy a house. We lived on a first floor apartment in Quincy Street. Okay. It was a great apartment. It was huge. Okay. We all had our own rooms. All right. There was a lot of pluses about that apartment, but she couldn't afford a home or she didn't even have the understanding of the home buying process. But my mother knew enough to know that if her kids were educated, then everything that she couldn't provide for us, we could provide for ourselves and for our families. Okay. I'm a homeowner. Okay. I own my home for, a little bit longer than my son's been alive. I used to own 2 homes. I sold the first one to get my current one. I have savings, I have 401k, 403b, whatever they all call it. I'm my son will inherit one day the home, so that's part of the generational wealth. But what he's also inheriting, and what Black people don't seem to we Black people don't seem to be understanding the value of, is values, morals, determination, supportiveness. That's the generational wealth that my mother passed on to me and my brother. Okay. How to act when you in public. Okay. How not to be cutting up in front of the white folk. All right. How to carry yourself with a sense of pride and dignity. Okay. Because, nowadays we Black folk be focusing on the wrong things. All right. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a controversy with that comedian Monique, and she was talking about how she was at the airport and she saw a lot of young Black women in bonnets and whatnot. Okay. And I was split on the controversy, because part of me was like, well, you're at the airport. You're going on a flight. You don't know how long you're going to be on that flight. You ain't trying to dress up. You're trying to be comfortable, because we all know how them airline seats are. And if you're tall, okay, them seats be knocking your knees. You ain't trying to be. If I'm getting on a private jet, then I'm going to dress a certain way. Okay. But still, it's going to be comfortable. I might not have a bonnet on my head, but I might have a scarf on, or my hair might be pulled back in a ponytail or something. Okay. Or I might throw on one of my wigs. Okay. There you go. But if I'm getting on Delta and I'm sitting in the economy section, who am I dressing up for? I can't get to the airline captain. He way up front. And if I try to, I'll probably get tackled.
Yes, by Air Marshal.
Shoot. All right. I ain't trying to dress up for the lady with her kid crying in my ear. I'm trying to be comfortable. And if I'm on a long flight, because I've been on long flights, because I went to Paris a few years ago, first time. Okay. That could be another conversation. But it was like a 6-7 hour flight. I am not coming on. I did not come on that flight dressed up with makeup on, with my best outfit on. Yeah, I was going to Paris, but first I had to get through this flight. I had on my leggings. I had on my comfy sneakers. I had my hair pulled back and a scarf around it. And there you go. All right. So my thing is, if you at the airport and you going somewhere, you ain't trying to dress up. You just trying to make sure you can get through TSA and get on that flight. Okay. Unless I'm Beyonce or Rihanna or somebody like that got money. All right. I'm not dressing up for nobody. If I throw on a bonnet to go grocery shopping, take out the trash, run a little errands that, I ain't going to be running into people, so be it. Okay. But I'm shoot. But on the flip side, I think about how back in our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents' days, I'm talking about during the Harlem Renaissance, the Civil Rights Movement, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. There was a certain way that Black folks carried themselves. And it wasn't about making sure we looked just as good as the white folk or anything like that. It was that we took pride in our appearance. Okay? One of my friends, she has a poster in her apartment that shows 3 young Black boys in Chicago on a Sunday. They dressed up in suits. And the picture was like from the 1930s or 40s. Okay? 3 Black boys. All right? Now, today, if you see, like, for example, use my kids again at my school, it was hot yesterday in Boston. So the kids were coming in. Some girls were wearing shorts, but some girls were wearing stuff. I was trying not to snatch them up, because the mother in me was like, what are you doing with that on? One girl had the crack of her behind. I was like, it looked like underwear.
Oh.
One girl walked by me in a bodysuit. Okay, she was a skinny little thing, pretty girl, but the bodysuit was totally inappropriate for a school setting.
What? What? Who? Man.
You are in, excuse me, you are in school. Okay, why are you wearing this bodysuit? And it was form-fitting too. And she was skinny. But it was just like, I'm looking at her, and I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like, what the hell? Okay, if any of my kids had walked out the house looking like that, first off, I must be blind. Okay, I ain't got no sight, and I must be deaf, because I'm gonna hear you walking, and I'm gonna be like, let me feel what you got. Oh, I feel straps. Oh, wait a minute. This up here by your shoe panty. You better take that off. And nobody was saying anything to these children. And it was mainly the girls that were problematic. Unfortunately, retailers in the fast fashion industry, they have these little crop tops and these little tank tops. They're walking around showing their bellies and all this stuff, their booty shorts, all that. And I'm like, meanwhile, the boys, they're wearing shorts past their knees. They're wearing t-shirts. A couple of them had on, wife beaters on, but it looked a lot better than what the girls were wearing. And I'm like, damn, why y'all dressed like this? Now, I'm not saying, oh, y'all got to be covered from head to toe, because that's not my vibe either. But at the same time, like, you're at school. Why are you wearing a bodysuit and nothing else? I'm like, really? But it just seems that Black folks want to be like, oh, well, we can wear what I want. I don't care what nobody thinks, da-da-da-da. But you never know who's watching you. And that was another thing my mom always told me. When I was a teenager, she was like, look, you getting older, you going out into the world, all right? People will pay attention to how you look. And when I was a teen, I was like, yeah, whatever, mom. Ain't nobody looking at me, da-da-da-da-da. And I remember multiple instances, not long after my mom told me that, of people coming up to me and commenting on my outfits. Okay? Because I was a fashionista even back when I didn't have no money. Yes. My mama taught me how to make $1 out of 15 cents. So, and I was always getting compliments on my outfits. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, snap. Mom was right. They watching me. So I made extra sure that I came out. My clothes weren't dirty, weren't wrinkled. Everything was coordinated, matched up, looking good, da-da-da-da-da. Because you never know who might be watching you. So my work is informed by all my life experiences coming up, childhood, teenagehood, womanhood, my life as a parent, my life as an educator, my life as a Black person, my life as a Black woman. In fact, my next, I've already started my next manuscript.
Wow.
Girl, I got poems for days. I can't just let them sit on the internet. They got to be out there in the world. So my next collection is tentatively entitled Black in Nature.
Oh, wow.
And it's going to be talking about perceptions of Blackness within the Black community. What does it mean to be Black? And so it's going to be what I've seen and heard and experienced as a Black woman, and how people have come at me or other people about how to carry their Blackness.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's like Black people need to get themselves sometimes, because it's like y'all be lost in the sauce of white supremacy and the white people's standard of how to carry yourselves.
Yes.
We had our own standard of how to carry ourselves that had nothing to do with whiteness. And we need to get back to that. Okay? Dressing like you ready for the club, dressing like your pants are down at your knees. We can see your Hanes. Sir, I can see your boxers. I see you're a brief guy, huh? No, I don't want to see that. Why should I see that? Why is that cool? Why is showing your underwear cool? Why is wearing a bodysuit cool? Okay? I mean, shoot, if there had been a cold snap yesterday, that girl would have froze to death. She would have been outside like this.
Yes.
Waiting for the thaw. And I would have been driving by my car like,
Hey.
I would have been sounding like my mother.
Yes.
And kept it going. Okay? Shoot, she lucky my mother wasn't standing with me when she walked by me in school, because my mother would have snatched her up. Probably started whooping her right there in the hallway.
Yes.
They probably would have been like, Miss Luke, who that lady? I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is, but I mean, don't get her
Even
away.
if she looks like you, be like, I don't know who that is.
No, I don't know who she is. But don't get in her way. You gonna catch them hands too.
Yes.
You gonna catch them hands too. And my mother had man hands. I'm gonna tell you right now. She had man hands. When she hit you, you felt it for days.
Ooh, you got slapped in the centuries back. Be like, why is Cleopatra right there? Your mama slapped you. Be like, Adam and Eve. Hey, what up? I got slapped back that far.
Right. I remember one time my brother did something crazy. My mom smacked him. Next thing you know, he in the bed knocked out. I was like, and then she looking at me, eyes all wild. I was like, let me go into my room and read a book.
Yeah, be like, I'm about to go over here.
I'm about to be in my room, Mama. I know he did wrong, but it's only 4:00 in the afternoon. Why he sleep? But
yeah, why he sleep?
Why he sleep? It's only 4:00 in the afternoon.
Yes.
So I'm telling you, it's like, look, yeah. So I think I answered the question. I don't forgot what it was.
Yes, you did. And one of the things that I love that you brought up about, like the intentionality of what people wear. And my thing is, and I, I deal mostly. I teach, thank God, non-traditional adult students. So they're older, they get it. But I, sometimes teach the youngins and work with the youngins, because when I worked in higher ed full time, I worked in student affairs for a little bit. And I'll be having conversations with the students, and they will be wearing those very revealing clothing at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm just like, what is the mission with what you have on? For me, if they say, oh, I just want to look good, great. But it's, to get some booty, to like get someone's attention. And that is what really bothers me, is that who are you dressing for? Who are you putting yourself out there for? And is it, is it a really good intention? And then what are you going to get out of it? And this is one of the issues that I have with, the next generation, is who are you doing this for? And also, what is shaping your identity? Because earlier you mentioned, the student and how they're melded into the cell phone. And my concern, because of and I may be going on a tangent, because of how capitalism now operates and technology and all these things, people don't have ways to really understand themselves. They're being dictated in terms of how they should be. And I'm like, whoa, I don't know if we're around the same age or not. I'm in my mid-40s, but it's like I miss growing up in a time where we did not have as much access to technology and to tons of images being thrown at us. Like we had in our home, we grew up working class. We had one TV and 5 or 6 channels. We didn't have cable for a long time, and I read a lot. And so I had a chance to really explore things through books. And then also too, I, was a very creative child and very creative now. And I, walked the environment to be able to see the things and help form my identity. That's one of the things that I am most proudest of that my parents gave me was the ability to walk the earth to figure out who I am on my own. Of course, they guided me and they were very strict. Like they were like, you can't have sex, you can't do this, but they, exposed me to the arts. They exposed me to many different things, and we talked a lot. And I feel like, and I had this conversation too with my Lyft driver a couple of days ago, where we are shortchanging millennials on their experience because we are allowing other things to raise them, and we're not parents anymore. Like this person, Lyft driver, I was out of town somewhere, and she was saying like because she has to work so much, she's not with her child as much. And so now there's all of these other things that are raising her child. And now her child is distant and all these other things. And her child is stressed out. And I'm like, because this, which has a very, technology has a very particular ulterior motive. It is to make someone else money. They don't care on whomever's backs they are. So and I'm glad that we had a chance to really get into this because not only, do I want Black Writers Read to be a platform about literature and literary culture, but to be a conversation about how our literature not only reflects the culture, but wants to be and build the culture.
Right.
Because
and you said earlier, one TV, 5 channels, we the same generation. We the same age group. Okay, because we had one TV, okay, about 5, 6 channels. All right. So yeah.
Yeah.
I remember them days. Them days. We didn't have cable for a long time because, like I said, money was tight. So cable was a luxury.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had to, go up a few income brackets before we could get our first cable box.
I remember when we got HBO for the first time, and then of course we didn't have it for that long because my parents couldn't afford it for that long. And I was like, oh, this is great. And I remember we just watched a couple of fights and all of a sudden we didn't have it anymore. Which I wanted to, before I go to my next question, to point out a comment that came in that I shared on the screen from Alvita, who is a huge supporter of Black Writers Read and just an amazing person based in Western Mass. Yes. She mentioned, so she's Puerto Rican, and she mentioned, and this takes into my next question, and like why it's so important for young people to be learning from us about our cultures. She said, and I'm paraphrasing that, because she's an amazing visual artist, writer, educator, all of these things. And she mentioned, many Puerto Ricans and other people of the diaspora not even knowing that there are, painters and people who do finer art and people who write books and things, and who are of the diaspora. And I hate that there are still so many people that are out there now who think books, writing a book is being white, wanting to read is being white, wanting to paint is what. And I'm like, y'all,
I don't know. I never heard about writing a book being white or painting being white. I've never heard that phrase. But throughout my life, even when I was a child, people, other kids would say, oh, you sound white. And I was like, I never understood that because I was like, well, I'm speaking. And how does that, talking is sounding white? And I guess as I got older, it was basically the language I was using. I wasn't using, da da the fit and lit, and every other word's a swear and all that stuff. I was like, because I remember I used to teach 9th grade, and a kid mentioned that to me, and I was just like, well, honey, I'm educated, okay, and when you're educated, you're going to pick up vocabulary. You're going to pick up words, phrases, and have experiences that you're going to expand your language. I mean, I know how to code switch. I don't talk this way to my friends or family. Okay. But when I'm in the classroom and I'm educating Black and brown students, I might put in some lingo, but the most thing you will hear is the language of someone that's educated. I mean, I have several degrees, like going back to what my mom said about doing better than me. I'm a homeowner. My son is doing better than me in terms of how I grew up. I'm college educated. I have graduate degrees. Thinking about going to get my doctorate because that's the last stop on the degree train for me. I mean, I am achieving things that my mother could only dream of, but she couldn't dream it for herself, but she did dream it for her children. And that's the difference. That's what I'm talking about. The generational wealth. It doesn't have to be money or a house. Generational wealth could be values, morals, a purpose.
Yes.
Okay. I'm passing that on to you. I don't have the money. We live in an apartment. We fighting with rats and roaches every day. Okay. But I can instill in you the importance of getting an education and making sure that you carry yourself presentably out in the world. Yeah. Stay away from trouble, like, gangs and drugs and all that stuff. Okay. Don't get on the police radar.
Yeah.
All right. And associate with people that are doing the same thing. Because I try to tell these kids, like, stop associating with these kids that, like, all they do is walk around the hallways all day. What are they learning? They know the hallway like the back of their hand. They get an A+ in that area. But if you ask them to spell a word, they're gonna first ask you if that word is even real. Okay. So associate yourself with kids that, if they want to go to college, associate with those kids. If they are thinking about trade school, associate yourself with those kids. If they're thinking about starting a business, associate yourself with those kids. Don't associate with kids that don't have a plan. Now, I know they're young, and sometimes, you don't figure out yourself stuff until you get a little older, but start at least thinking about it. Yeah. Because eventually you're going to be done with high school. You're going to be an adult. Society expects something from you. Okay. You can't depend on mama and daddy to bail you out. You got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
You got to be able to show something. Okay. Prove that you can contribute to society, especially Black society. All right. Because we need more doctors, lawyers, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, chiropractors, vets. We need more writers, painters, illustrators, okay, poets, playwrights. We need more people of the diaspora in the arts, in the sciences, okay, in the technologies. We got that AI that done come out on the scene the last few months.
Oh,
okay? Y'all need to be getting on that AI train. That's the next wave. And they're predicting that wave is going to wash away millions of jobs in this country. Okay? Because if the AI can do it, then the company ain't going to hire you if they can just get a robot to do it for free.
Yep.
So you got to have multiple skills to pay the bills. It's no longer just 1 skill or 2 skills. You got to have 3, 4, 5 skills. You got to be able to do things that the AI can't do. You got to stay one step ahead of the AI. All right? Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself on the unemployment line.
Oh.
All right? So you got to have multiple skills to pay the bills. You got to have a plan. Find a purpose for yourself. All right? So writing for me is my purpose. Okay? As I transition out of the classroom, I'm like, lost for a second. But then I was like, think of all the things that you have done and accomplished when you were in the classroom.
Yeah.
Okay. That can be turned into dollars. How can I monetize my skill set? Okay. And if I don't know something, where can I go online or at the bookstore or library to learn it for free or low cost? Okay. So that's what I'm doing. Like this summer, I'm traveling, I'm writing, but I'm also learning. Okay, because there's new things happening every day, and I want to be up in that mix, all up and through that mix.
Yeah,
where the action is. Okay, I want to be where the people are, where the people who are doing things. I ain't gonna be sitting on the stoop in the middle of July talking about what's going on. No,
on the stoop.
I can't do that. Okay, I gotta be on the move. I gotta have my hustle hard. Hustle hard.
Yes.
That's how you got to have multiple streams of income. Okay, you got to have multiple streams of income. Because shoot, a dozen eggs is $6. I can't even fill up my gas tank.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd be like, well, if I can get to half a tank, that can get me to the end of the week.
Dang.
And let me make sure I'm driving real slow. Don't put on the gas now because you're gonna eat it up. Don't turn on the AC.
Yep, don't turn on the AC.
Better have that window down. Okay, shoot. Eggs are $6 for 12.
Ooh.
Go on now. My butt hustles right over to Costco and get them 24 eggs for $4.99. There you go.
Yes.
I don't play. Shoot, I ain't trying to go broke trying to feed my family. Shoot, I'm teaching myself new skills ever since the pandemic. When we were on lockdown, I've been teaching myself new skills in the arts, skills, technology. Shoot, I wear a lot of wigs. I got tired of. One day I was like, you know what? I am tired of buying wigs.
Oh.
I was like, I'm tired. So guess what? I'm making my own. I was like,
oh,
let me go to YouTube University and booyah.
Wait, so the wigs that you be putting on
Booyah.
Instagram, I didn't realize you've been making those.
Well, the last couple are mine. The ones before that, they were bought. But I was like, I'm not buying any more wigs. I was like, I'm making someone else rich. All right. I'm making my own. All right. And it's been trial and error, but I'm getting better at it. And that keeps me going. I was like, nah, they ain't getting my money no more. All right. They ain't getting my money no more.
Yeah.
I was like, shoot, buy my own wigs, write my own books. There you go.
Nice.
I was like, look, make my own jewelry. I'm interested in doing that. Paint my own paintings. Make my own art.
Nice.
All right. I'm a Renaissance woman. All right. We are in Harlem Renaissance 2.0, Nicole.
Yes, we are.
Okay. I seen it on Instagram and TikTok. All right. The black folks and brown folks that are doing something worthwhile besides shaking their booties have taught me about art, literature, financial management, okay, crafting, all right. YouTube, you go on there, you learn all kinds of stuff, all right, for free. All right, you go like Google has a whole bunch of certifications you can get for free.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I'm about to teach myself digital marketing because I'm about to start my own business.
Wow.
Okay, and because I'm like, I got to have multiple streams of income to replace the income I'm about to lose. So I got to do what I got to do. All right, so I got to save money wherever I can. Okay, to do what I need to do. All right. And that's all that's going to go into black in nature, because I'm a nature lover also. A lot of my poems on my poetry site, allpoetry.com/SJ Luke, everybody. allpoetry.com/SJ Luke. Check out my poems. A lot of my poems on there deal with nature stuff because as a kid, we had a big backyard and we had a rose bush and it bloomed every spring. Big old fat juicy roses, red roses. Okay, so I've always loved nature. We had big old trees in the backyard. Shoot, stray cats would come in and just sit underneath the trees. We had those switches that your grandma would say, go over there and get.
Oh,
it would fall from the bushes underneath the trees. You know what I'm talking about? Them switches.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So shoot, and I've always liked going to parks. I've always loved the water, going to beaches, so part of Black in Nature is going to be talking about how Black people perceive Blackness, how I perceive Blackness, but also Black people in nature.
Yeah.
Okay. How do we interact with the water? How do we interact with the trees, with flowers, with animals? Okay. So I think that's an important part of who we are as well.
Yeah.
Yes. What questions you got for me, honey?
Yes, because I was like, homegirl need a water break. So right? I just have, what's that?
Just to let you know, I'll need to leave soon because I have some errands. It's Saturday. I got to run my errands.
Yes, to go get your $4 eggs from Costco.
No, that's tomorrow.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah. So I just have a couple more questions for you. I'm gonna try to, combine. I have like maybe two. I'm gonna combine the two.
Okay.
So, and speaking of, thank you for mentioning your website. So many of the poems that you write are available on your website. To me, they read similarly to James Baldwin as you take on a beautifully necessary mode of bearing witness. Much of this work seems to advocate for the voiceless, like the Black Body and the Chokehold poem, A Hero Among Us, and April is National Poetry Month #9. So the first part of this question is, because you're so good at surmising multiple questions, how does your surrounding environment inform your work? You kind of talked a little bit about that. And why is it important for someone like you, a Black woman, to bear witness in this way? And then also, you have another online presence. You write for Medium. I follow you on Medium. And she has a good following on Medium. And that's where you do your nonfiction writing, which I didn't realize you did nonfiction first before poetry. So I would love for you to talk about first, like, how it is to bear witness as a Black woman poet, and then also through your nonfiction writing on Medium, how is it to bear witness in the nonfiction space, and why is it important for you as a Black woman, mother, educator who is like uber educated to, and also your first generation college educated, which I didn't realize that either, to be able to straddle between the two environments? Like, why is it important for your voice to be both in poetry and in nonfiction?
Well, as I said earlier, it's about that hustle hard mentality. Okay. I believe in hustling hard, multiple streams of income. I believe also getting my rest. I like my naps. Okay.
Yes.
I like my naps. Naps is also resistance. As a woman I follow on Instagram who talks about napping and revolution and whatnot, and I agree, because I got, as we navigate through our 40s into our 50s, naps are important. But to answer your question first about the nonfiction, first off, James Baldwin is a huge influence on my nonfiction, because I've always, and James Baldwin, and I sort of like want to be like James Baldwin in terms of he wrote nonfiction, he wrote fiction, and he wrote poetry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And plays.
And plays.
Yes.
And he was a public speaker. He gave, I've watched so many of his public, speeches. And he traveled all over the country, all over the world, giving these great talks about the human condition, Blackness, racism, and oppression and everything. Yeah. And he has such great insight. And so I sort of like, kind of want to be like him in terms of having my hand in everything, multiple areas, and doing all those areas well, because that's what he did. Yeah. And I know it took a long time for him to get to that point, and it took a lot of experiences, a lot of trials and errors. And I know I'm going through all my trials and tribulations, but writing nonfiction, when something's going on, like when DeSantis said that African American AP literature wasn't, relevant, wasn't rigorous, wasn't educational. Okay. I wanted to slap the man.
Yes.
Right? And so I wrote about that. And all the things that go on, the chokehold, the police brutality, Black people doing things that make me scratch my head and be like, huh? So I write about that in the nonfiction realm. And then in the poetry realm, I write about, sometimes I don't want to do long form. I want it quick. So I write a poem, and when it comes to me, I got to write it, because I'm easily distracted by multiple things. So I'll be like this. I got to write this. I got to write this. So that's how I navigate between the two. I eventually I would like to turn some of my Medium pieces into a collection of essays. Because
Oh, wow.
I do have some essay collections here, James Baldwin and some other people that I like. I also want to write fiction. I'm working on a middle grade novel about this sort of like African mythology with Greek mythology coming together. So I'm working on that. And then I have my poetry manuscript that I'm in the midst of right now. And also I'm a public speaker. I have no problems. And anybody out there that's listening to this broadcast, if you're looking for a public speaker, you're looking for a facilitator, you're looking for someone to, help your profit or nonprofit, company with business communication, business writing, or just getting your people to connect and communicate post pandemic, hit me up, DM me. Okay. And also doing my little fashion, not my little fashion, is growing. It's almost 2,000 followers. Follow me at Fashionista SJL. There you go.
Yes. So I will, and I'll share that soon as well when I repost, because I follow Shirley on there, and I'm just like,
so I have
every day.
So it's like,
yes.
It's like, look, I'm just trying to put as much as me out there in the world so that when I join the ancestors, there's a whole bunch of me still on the other side.
Yeah. So the last question that I have for you, so you kind of already answered one in terms of how Black Writers Read community can support you. So I feel like this is I may do a special next season on the professionalization of the arts and where Black folks fit in. Because this is a conversation that I have as an educator all the time, and also someone who went through, BFA like program and MFA, and like there's a certain I'll preface it with this. So I went to the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor for undergrad, and I started off as music and I ended up in theater. And one of the things that I noticed was for certain genres in the arts, like for example, their musical theater program, which is one of the top in the country, they are fortunate that almost all of their graduates each year go on tours, to go on Broadway. There's a lot of Tony Award winning actors that come out of that program. And to my recollection, many of them grew up in situations where they had access to private dance lessons, private singing lessons. Like they, from birth to 16, were being groomed to be these professional artists. Me, I'm fortunate, but I came from the public school system. So I only had access, I only had access to arts in a particular way. And I remember the first summer I went to Interlochen Arts Camp, I was 16, and I was like, wait, what world is this where people, were already having private lessons and certain things. And those are things that were not for me. So it feels like, when it comes to going into the arts professionally, that there's already a pipeline that exists. And if you are poor, you will not get on that pipeline. So now I thought, as you mentioned earlier, and my parents were the same way too, education is the gateway to, building and leaving a legacy, and leaving a legacy for my parents. My dad didn't graduate from high school, and my mom, she just went to high school. And so education for me and my brother were big, which is why I went up to my doctorate. So one of the things that I realized when I was doing my MFA, I did my MFA in theater, is that they were like, okay, we want to polish you and get you ready for the professional world. That is not what happened. Instead, my, resources and things were milked to run the professional theater company on campus. And so when I got out into the real world and had all of these particular goals for arts leadership, I graduated with my MFA in 2007. I'm now just getting an arts leadership type position in 2023 because I had to do the MFA of the streets and the MFA in the profession. And so my question is, and like I said, this is a tangent. It feels like there are multiple pipelines to work professionally in the arts, but it seems like it is still closed off to people like you and me. And I would love to hear from you, one, about the experiences that the MFA in creative writing, though the doors that it opened for you. And then also, I would love for you to share with other Black women just like you and me who want to go into an MFA program, or the arts as a profession. What advice do you have for them in pursuing turning their creative practice into their income?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out that myself. But what I have, let's start with the opening of doors.
Yeah.
I think because I graduated from Emerson, which is a well-known arts college on the East Coast, it did, it would stand out on my artistic resume and CV and stuff like that. And that would help me get into prestigious or high level workshops. Like I've been to VANA, which is Voices of Our Nation. I've been to Tin House. I've been to Breadloaf.
Yeah.
I've been to Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, I've been to Martha's Vineyard. When I went to Paris a few years ago, that was a writing program. So I spent a week writing in Paris. And then I did other programs along the East Coast, South area. So what I would recommend, and the way I found out about this is when I first started really getting into my writing to help me cope with cancer and taking care of my mom and everything else that was going on in my life. I would subscribe to magazines that focused on the genre, like Writer's Digest, The Writer, Poets and Writers, American Poetry Review. And a lot of this, you don't even have to subscribe. A lot of what they offer, you can also get online. And every month, Poets and Writers, for example, has a submission calendar that you can access online for free. And, click on a particular day. And if they have some things listed, you can go the link will take you right to the website of that publication or contest or whatever. And you can apply, send your work there. Okay. You have, as I said, you have to pay a fee, and I ain't no trust fund baby. So one thing that helped me with offset the cost of fees is that we have a local writing organization called Grub Street.
Which is awesome.
And Grub Street from time to time will offer many scholarships to offset the cost of writing workshops and submission fees. So you apply, and if you're lucky, you'll get that. And it's usually about $200, $250. But, that can get you through for a while, depending on, who you're, how often you submit your work. And then also the city of Boston has an arts and culture department that also does a lot of things with grants for artists, whether you're a painter or a writer. So for like about 3 or 4 times a year, they'll post, okay, we have these grants. They'll give you the deadline. You apply. There's no application fee to apply. You submit your work. And if you get approved, then you can get a grant from anywhere from like $500 to like $10,000, depending on what the grant is. And then there's also local, smaller arts organizations that have grants and opportunities for artists and writers. So I would say, regardless if you have an BFA or an MFA, what's going to open doors for you really is getting yourself out there. Okay, Emerson helped because, like I said, it's a big time arts college. But putting myself out there locally, nationally, internationally, because I've had some of my poems published in the UK. So that gets you out there. All right. And don't overlook, everybody wants to be published in like those, if you're a writer, you want to be published in one of those big journals like the Paris Review. Okay, everybody wants to be published in the Paris Review or the New York Times. Okay, everybody's trying to get in there. Don't go for that place first. Okay, go for the places that don't get as much attention. Okay, those small publications, those small journals and whatnot that are looking to build up a name for themselves. They're more likely to take your work. All right, and the more, and as you get more work published, your name gets out there. Okay, and people start seeing you in places. Like I said, I went to the Tin House in Varna and the Bread Loaf, Martha's Vineyard, and people had heard about me. All right, I went to local stuff at the UMass Boston, and they had heard about me. And I was surprised, but I was like, oh, I didn't realize that I was getting out there, but I'm out there. So that's what you can do to make a name for yourself is submit. Okay, have a body of work. And when you have the body of work, then you can use that body of work to apply for the BFA and an MFA. Okay, because then you can say in your application, yeah, I've been published here, I've attended this workshop, blah, 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 blah. Okay, because they're looking at you as not only do you have the skills to handle the curriculum, but also are you going to be someone that could be potentially really successful in that genre and can bring some money back to the university. Okay, that's what the colleges and universities are looking at. Are you going to be that alumni that makes it big? And Emerson is known for having a lot of alumni that have made it big. Some have won Tonys and Emmys and Academy Awards and all kinds of local national prizes and all that stuff. So they have a reputation of cranking out people who go on to do big things. All right. So, but they only accept people that they feel have that potential. So you got to present a portfolio that shows them you have that potential. All right. So the first step is to put yourself out there. Now, if you want to be a working poet or a working nonfiction writer or a working fiction writer, it's the same process. Start putting your stuff out there. Don't leave your 9 to 5 yet. Okay. Start putting a little money away. All right. Start saving. Apply for those grants because those grants can help you offset costs of living too. All right. Start building up some savings for yourself. Because like I said, most Black folks, we ain't trust fund babies. So we got to depend on local, state, and federal art programs to help fund us. All right. Hone your craft. Find low cost or free programs where you can take classes to hone your craft. Okay. Like I said, check out the Writer's Digest, Poets and Writers. Look online, type in Google, do a search, Google search, writing programs, go on Twitter, type in, Black writers or Black poets or Black fiction writers, Black women writers, what you want to put in, okay, and see what comes up. The internet is a plethora of information and resources that you can access for free, all right? You ain't got to go into debt trying to fund your dreams. All right. So that's what I would say to people and, and just keep working at it. It's not going to happen overnight. All right. You gotta work. All right. And if you believe in yourself and your skill set, big things will happen. I mean, I won my first poetry prize in 2020.
Wow.
Yeah. I am the Patricia Dobler award winner for poetry. For women over 40.
Nice.
Yeah. My first poetry prize. And those poetry prizes, if you can win those can add up too. I mean, poetry has gotten as people have a different sense of it now. Yeah. One of my favorite poets, Carl Phillips, he just won the Pulitzer for his collection, Then the War. I bought that.
Yes.
This is a manual for me to study. Yeah. Okay. Because I want to be like Carl Phillips one day and get myself a Pulitzer. But there's also people that I've met and studied with that have won big prizes, Guggenheims, MacArthur Genius Grants. I mean, the money is out there for poets. All right. You just got to hone your stuff, polish it up to, to a diamond quality, and then put it out there. And if you don't get it, that's okay. All right. Because you might get recognition as a finalist or a semi-finalist. That's still putting your name out there. That's still putting your name on people's radar. All right. So just keep going. Just keep going. I've had tons of rejections. All right. But, then success comes, like me talking to you. Okay. Because just last week, I was all drowning in my sorrows because I had gotten another manuscript rejected.
That's why I was like, I need to have you on right now.
I was like, oh, woe is me. But people gave me encouragement. They said, don't give up. And I'm not giving up, but I'm being more strategic. Because like I said, them fees add up. I used to apply to every writing contest. Now I'm like, nah, I ain't got $300, $400 to give to y'all. Shoot, I could do something else. That's bill paying money. All right. So let me apply to this one and this one, because these are well known. Let me apply to this one and this one. Okay, because these aren't as well known, but they giving out a big prize, because some of them prizes are big. I got $2,500 when I won my first poetry contest. All right, $2,500. That's nothing to sneeze at.
No,
it was $2,500 more than I had before.
Yes.
So I say just keep going. Okay, keep going. Enter local stuff, enter regional stuff, national stuff, international stuff. Okay, go after those small presses. All right, pitch your stuff when you feel that it's ready. Pitch your stuff to those small presses, and then just build the life that you want. That's what I'm in the midst of doing now, building the life that I want.
Nice. So Shirley, like I knew this afternoon was gonna be amazing, and like just because we originally had you booked for a couple more weeks out, and I was like, let's do Mother's Day weekend. Like this was so perfect. Like, thank you.
Thank you. This gets my Mother's Day weekend off to a great start.
Yes. So go do your shopping for your eggs.
I ain't buying no eggs. Speaking of bills, I gotta go pay one. So there you go.
Oh, snap. Is that why your light went out earlier?
Girl, don't tell nobody. No, not that.
Yes.
Girl, no. My lamp is broken, and I might have to get a new lamp while I'm at Target.
Oh.
No, I pay those big bills. They get paid first.
Yes.
Because I need my electricity and I need my internet so I can be on programs like this, and I can send out my work. Shoot, those are the first thing that get paid.
Yes. So Shirley, happy Mother's Day. Have an amazing weekend. It was so great chatting with you. And also, too, I want to give a special shout out too for Grub Street, because it's because of their Boston Writers of Color that we met.
Yay!
And
Thank you, Grub Street. Thank you, Grub
Yes.
Street. And again, I wish everybody a great weekend. And for all those that are caregivers, happy Mother's Day. Enjoy tomorrow. I hear the weather, at least in Boston, is going to be great. So I wish you wonderful weather on your Mother's Day, wherever you are in the world. And I appreciate you, Nicole, for having me on your program. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And have a great afternoon, Shirley. I'm going to do some wrap up. Take
All
care.
Right. Bye.
So Black Writers Read will be back in early June. We're starting to wrap up season 3. I have 2 episodes left in the coffer to get us through, and then we have the summer. So I'm excited to announce, and I've talked about it throughout different episodes, Black Writers Read will be going, we're doing virtual book clubs this summer. We are doing Black Writers Summer Reads, and you'll be able to find out more about that on Instagram. We are on Instagram at Black Writers Read. We will be, coming together once a month in very small groups as small as 10 people, to meet with one of the authors that was featured on Black Writers Read to discuss their book in a very intimate Zoom setting. For June, I am bringing back Enzo Soren, Salon Soren, and his book American Scapegoat. I'm extremely excited for that to be the first book, because I fangirl him like it is no joke. Then for July, we are doing Natasha Gordon Chippenberry's finding La Negrita, which was the book a couple of months ago that takes place in Costa Rica around the Black Madonna figure, and it's historical fiction. For August, we are bringing back Black Writers Read's favorite guest, Tracy Cross, and her horror book, Root Work. Her episode, the live stream and the audio podcast are and were the most watched, the most downloaded, and the most listened to. And then lastly, I am excited for September to start off the academic year, and for many folks, a new season of life for the fall, bringing on LaVista Jones to talk about the boss shift, changing your mindset and everything so that you're preventing burnout. Please visit Instagram at Black Writers Read to learn more about how you can sign up to join us for the virtual book clubs. Each author will be in the Zoom room, so you'll be able to talk with them and ask questions about the book. And each book club will have an accompanying reading companion guide. So again, find out more about me and Black Writers Read, which I soon will be launching a separate Black Writers Read website. But for now, find out more about Black Writers Read at NicoleMYoung.com. You'll learn about Black Writers Read and also some of my other work. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel to keep up with episodes of both Black Writers Read and my other projects. And also, please be sure to subscribe to the audio podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Please subscribe and download. Those make a huge difference when it comes to me trying to garner financial support for the program. So thank you to all of you for spending your afternoon with us, and more importantly, for ensuring that Black authors continue to matter. Happy Mother's Day to all of the caregivers out there. Much love. Thanks so much.